Blog Talk Radio.
Warning, the following program may include profane language, controversial viewpoints, and perspectives on the true nature of reality so far removed from the status quo, they'll make your head spin like a top. Young children, corporate executives, and religious fundamentalists should turn away now. Good evening, planet Earth, and welcome to Extraordinary Year, the show about 2012 for everyday people like you. I'm Tim Bravo, and I want to thank you for listening in tonight. T-minus 148 days until December 21st, 2012. As always, I encourage you to like our Facebook page at facebook.com/extraordinaryyear. You'll find links for everything we talk about on the shows. Plus, you can connect with like-minded people and stay on top of news and UFO sightings. Now, aside from being the great-granddaughter of American President Dwight D. Eisenhower, our guest tonight, Laura Eisenhower, is well known for being recruited by the secret space program back in 2006, specifically to live on a colony we have on Mars. At some risk to herself, she's very publicly spoken about those experiences and is working to educate open-minded seekers about intricate spirituality, the divine feminine, and what 2012 means for us all. So, Laura, that's exactly what this show is about anyway, so thank you for coming on again and delving a little deeper into these subjects with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, there's a pattern I've noticed in people around our age who consider themselves light workers. They grow up being spoon-fed religion. They're more religious than their peers maybe, but at some point have a fall from grace, and that leads to them become a seeker of a wider, less dogmatic view of spirituality. And that's been my experience anyway, and I know that the spirituality that I've sort of come across is part and parcel with everything that I find on your website, cosmicgaia2012.com. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us, what was your path through life? How did you get to where you are spiritually?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, it just started when I was young. My awareness of the imbalance in our world was a big heads up for me to search deeply into my own soul, to understand my sensitivities and the stuff that I was picking up on. There's so many hidden layers of reality that I was getting in touch with that, I could tell were being either covered up or, pushed away by kind of an empty facade or sort of theatrical performance rather than the true stuff. And, as I was maturing through the years, I just, explored things based on my own inner truth, knowing that I had a deep connection to Gaia, the planetary body, and a deep connection to Christ consciousness, but a profoundly deep connection to the Sophia energy and the Magdalene energies. That was always a given, since I was a child. So I recognized that energy had been, in a sense, exiled. And my path was, and has been, all about, in a sense, resurrecting it and bringing it back to our awareness, embodying it by, going through whatever journey was necessary in order to recover the lost aspects. Because this is really our story. These myths are all within us, and all these archetypes are within us. So when we really do spiritual work and soul work on an inward level, which is really where it needs to be done, we can start to integrate and bring back these aspects of ourselves rather than look outside of ourselves, to worship a figure or, read some book and have it handed down to us through humans or aliens, So it's just been a lifelong thing, and I always steered away from, religion, but I always appreciated at least the good intention behind some of it. But as we see now, it's been absolutely infiltrated, and it's now a very dark, dark institution, particularly the Catholic religion. But I've just spent a lot of time also in the wilderness. I spent a couple of years, my training was in wilderness expedition leadership, so I just really tapped into the divinity of the planet, and just, the animals and just, my multidimensional awareness and just the way miracles work and how one can raise their vibration and actually really make amazing things happen. And then I was, on a very difficult path at times, with little money on the road, and, really recognized, the instant reflection that the world gives one based on their state of mind. So I really worked on keeping my vibration high, and noticed that when I was not in fear or panic about my situation, there was an incredible synchronicity and flow. But every time I fell into, a level of constriction or panic, things would begin to shut down. And so I really learned everything that I know now based on, some very challenging situations and some very eye-opening, expansive experiences, and just sort of let my intuition put the pieces together. But as it stands today, it's really about sacred union, the balance of the masculine and feminine, and most of what I've learned is really from nature and just, seeing the common sense in just viewing and observing, the way nature is and how much that is within our own soul. All the elements, the spirit animals, and just the nature of, death, rebirth, regeneration, and how these are cyclical energies that are within us.
People like me are blessed to have people like you around because you understand that not everybody just gets it, right?
I do.
Do you ever find that challenging that you run into people who just, they want to have the spirituality that you have access to, but they just don't get it, and having to deal with their misconceptions?
Yeah, it can be extremely difficult. It was particularly before I became public, I was very isolated, and I didn't really make sense to a lot of people. I just didn't have a huge, group of friends, maybe here and there, but I ended up getting more and more isolated on my path, particularly around the time of the recruitment and other things that had gone on. It was like I was outside of the box that's outside of the box, and almost ostracized for just being too weird for people. And then, of course, now that we've all found like-minded friends and people and community, through social networking and just putting our stuff out there and reaching, larger audiences rather than looking to your local bar to find, friends or, parties. I do find that there's a lot of like-minded people, but still, there is a level of New Age deception that people get embroiled in, which is really frustrating because it's like they get so close, but yet that one little chink takes them so much further away than they need to be. And I'm not saying that I'm any judge or, I'm, have the ability to really see if a person's on or off, but at the same time I kind of do because I trained at a clairvoyant institute for 2 years and really can observe energy pretty well. And so without any judgment, my life's work is also about helping people get back on track and really align, to their own source energy so that they can have a direct connection rather than seeking it through all these different ways and means that there's a lot of misinformation or subtleties that can take one further away from their path. So it's frustrating, but that's why I've kind of made it my life's work to just assist people in getting to know themselves better.
Well, like I said, we're blessed to have you with us.
Oh, well, thank you. We're blessed to have you.
Hey, I'll take that. So let's keep on the spiritual tip here because we don't get around to talking about that on this show often enough. At least that's the way I feel. So having you on is kind of a treasure. So I want to ask you, what's the most fantastic, otherworldly spiritual experience you've had that's just, left you completely doubtless of what you've just been through?
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't really know where to start. I want to grasp at a really... Okay, well, I think lately, just with everything I've gone through, something that kind of culminates the essence of all my experiences kind of put into one place was in Mount Shasta during the Venus transit. I had, set the intention that, I was really going to work this, organic ascension timeline, but I needed signs. I needed, just something to give me clues that I was, doing what I came here to do. And so I've always sort of based my progress on signs from the universe or just synchronicities that line up. Well, I had been speaking at MUFON, and Chief Golden Eagle showed up, and the following day invited me to be a speaker at the Star Knowledge Conference in Mount Shasta. And years before, I had this premonition that a golden eagle would come and take me exactly where I needed to be. And then I saw, and I didn't know his name, when I met him until he signed the email the following day, said, Chief Golden Light Eagle. And I said, all of a sudden everything just like stopped, and I was like, wow, this is the synchronicity. So anyway, I go up to Mount Shasta, and it's actually the area where Andrew Bashago trained in the Mars training program to be a teleportee to the Mars colony, which was what I was recruited into. But his training program took place a decade before my recruitment. But it took place at the College of the Siskiyous, which is in Reed, California, which is right in the Shasta area. And anyway, so I'm at this conference. It's the day of the Venus transit. I'm preparing for my talk. And, I'm getting up to put my computer away, and I forget just one thing. and my partner gets into a conversation with somebody. They're like, isn't this a big astronomical day? What's going on today? And my partner says, well, it's the Venus transit. And somebody overhears our conversation and says, oh, we're about to go to the College of the Siskiyous and view it through a telescope. You guys should come. So here I am, you know, going to the College of the Siskiyous where Andrew Bashago trained, you know, to go to Mars by Ed Dane. And here I am watching the Venus transits, and this was the very same program that I was meant to be a part of. And I wasn't even supposed to be standing there because the agenda was to have me on planet Mars, not, you know, here in Shasta speaking about it. So the synchronicity was that viewing through a telescope Venus crossing the sun at a place that was, you know, later going to be associated with my recruitment was a huge, huge sign to me that this timeline had crushed the false artificial timeline of needing to evacuate and go to Mars. And then I spoke about it, and the following day, I didn't realize, but it was the anniversary of D-Day. And I had dreams that whole night of all these V's coming at my face saying, Victory Day, Victory Day. And when I woke up, I had no idea that it was the anniversary of D-Day, and that's when I spoke about, you know, all this different stuff. Now, that's just the synchronicity of where everything's culminated, the divine feminine energies, the Venus transits, being, you know, able to put all this into words and articulate it right in the same area that the Mars program was. But I would say an even more mind-blowing thing are some of the weird miracles that I was able to manifest over time. One time, I was at a party, and I knew that I shouldn't drink anymore. And I picked up a beer, and I said, you know, this should be water, but I think I'll have one more. I should probably be drinking water. It's not that I had to drive, but I just said it. I crack open the beer, and I take a sip, and it was water. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I passed it around to my friends, and they had a sip. They said, it is water. I said, I just cracked it open, and there's water in here. And they said, well, you just said that it should be water, and now it's water. And I woke up the next day doubting the whole thing, thinking, and I even said to the people, I think they must have bottled by accident water, and it's just a coincidence, because I had a hard time owning that you know, cause it's like so funny, because we hear about, you know, Christ turning water into wine, and here I am at a party turning beer into water, and then later joking, I wish I could turn water into beer. I don't really drink anymore. But it really reminded me, because I was in a really high vibration that evening, you know, that like we do have the ability to just make those kind of miracles happen. And I was at a psychic institute. It was a bunch of psychics around me, so they're not the kind that are going to validate anything unless they believe it to be true. And they kept reminding me of it. They were saying, Laura, do you remember at the party what you did? And I was like, okay, I guess, you know, that really happened. And, you know, a few things like that, you know, pulling money out of the ground when I needed it. And, you know, it just really reminds, it just is a testimony, because this is not something special to me. This is abilities that we all have. And if we can just recognize that we're in a period right now on our planet where the power of spirit and intention is going to be more powerful than the physical and matter, we'll start to be able to shape our reality and do the necessary alchemy to transmute all the negative energies and all the different insults into something much, much higher. And, you know, so those were huge testimonies to our abilities, rather than reading, you know, about somebody who's done that before, or, you know, it's if I can do it, I know everybody can do it. And it was just as simple as being in a high vibration, being in the now, and just capturing that moment and just setting that intention, and that was able to happen. Now, I haven't had a hard time doing anything since, and I'm wondering, okay, where did that ability go? But I do know that this is what we're headed towards, and this is the alchemy of what the Venus transits are creating on a global level. But so many people push it away, and we're, you know, constantly insulted. You know, our consciousness is, you know, put in areas that distract us from, you know, what we're truly, you know, capable of creating. But yeah, I mean, I just have a, you know, a lot of different stories, but a lot of it has to do with synchronicity and just, you know, needing that omen or needing a sign, and just having something really extraordinary happen that, you know, gives me that confidence, because you can't really get it from people. You know, you can get support and, you know, but there's a lot of anxiety. I wouldn't say negative anxiety, but, you know, I'm always in a constant process 24/7, you know, on this path, just moving energy, working energy. You know, this started when I was a kid, and when I found the tarot deck, I've been basically shuffling ever since. That was, you know, 15, 20 years ago, working global energy, and just, you know, constantly. It's like it never leaves me alone. And so, you know, all these things made a huge difference to, you know, trusting what I was doing and knowing that, you know, if something showed up at the right time when I needed it, it was basically the universe's way of saying you're on the right track, you're doing it. And, you know, not too personally, the attack, you know, being almost killed so many times, I just learned to say, this is just another day at the office, and I just accepted that this is the role I'm choosing to play, and I'm not going to be a victim. And that kept my energy high, so.
And this is exactly the kind of stuff that I wanted to ask you. And I feel like we should kind of at least touch base with some of the stuff that we promoted, just in case there are people out there who haven't heard these stories. So let's quickly go over kind of the space program stuff. But Laura, I really want to get more into talking about the positive timeline, like you talk about on your website, and ascension, and just what people can look forward to in the way of just to acknowledge it. Aside from being known for having a deep spiritual understanding, you're also pretty famous for having been recruited for the secret Mars program. Last time you were with us, you gave us the quick version of how that developed, and so I don't know if there was anything that we kind of skipped, but yes, you were part of that, yes?
Yes, in 2006 I was recruited by somebody who I met at a festival. I had no idea that he was specifically sent to take me to Mars. I didn't find out till way later in the relationship that he was sent specifically to take me to Mars. But previous to that, there was a lot of discussions about going to Mars. It was all very hush-hush. And I realized that, I started doing a lot of research, realizing that this connects to Alternative 3, which was established in the Eisenhower administration in the event of cataclysms, and later understood that this actually was communicated to humans by aliens that actually wanted us to think that we needed this survival exit plan to steer us off course into a service to self mentality, which is what the humans ended up adopting, which is instead of informing humanity about this communication, they decided to keep it secret so that only the select few would be able to flee, and kind of leaving the rest of humanity to fend for itself. And this includes the underground bases. And so during the recruitment, I knew that something was wrong. They said it was to protect me and this and that. I knew that there was a lot of deception. I knew that there was a lot of mind control because my partner, would split and, shift into different personalities and do missions without remembering and, take weird calls. And there was a heavy black ops sort of energy. And this was all sort of new to me at the time. It's not like I was really well schooled in all this kind of stuff. But as I was in it and trying to just kind of sort it all out, a lot of questions were answered, including Looking Glass Technologies, which was a part of how I was recruited. They were able to look into past lives and locate my affinity with this man so that I would naturally fall for him so that they could then lure me in through the heart, because they said I couldn't be mind controlled, so this was the method that they used to kind of lure me in. And so they got to him before me in order for me to fall for him and then go wherever he was going to go. And because I was kind of staying 2 steps ahead of them, because luckily I, pretty intuitive, I was able to catch up with it all before I made, a choice to leave. And even though we're dealing with a lot of destruction and a lot of crisis and radiation and this and that, firmly, we can face all this and we must face it together, because I'm not here to preserve the physical, I'm here to preserve the soul, which does not need to be controlled. We have to own our power and own our abilities in order to get out of this mess. We don't need to evacuate and leave, most of humanity fending for itself. And there's no way kind of for something that's built upon that level of deception. So, that all comes down.
Laura, you're fading in and out right now. I find it interesting that that's happening as you're talking about these things. Are you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. So you say that was Alternative 3, but on websites I've seen it referred to as Alternative 4 recently. So what's the difference between that?
I coined the term, I came up with the term Alternative 4, meaning if Alternative 3 was to go to Mars, then there must be another alternative that we haven't thought of yet. So I came up with Alternative 4, meaning a positive human future based on the empowerment of the human spirit.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of my way to say, oh yeah, there's Alternative 3. Well, how about Alternative 4, which is empowering the human spirit, awakening and remembering what we're capable of and focusing on that instead of some exit plan, because Mother Earth does not need us to evacuate her. She needs us to evict the elite from her body. So
agreed. And it really looks like that's been set up. Even in the mainstream, you can look at that. If we have time toward the end, I want to go over some recent news with you, because there's just a ton of stuff going on. But let's keep rolling on with the secret space stuff for people out there who don't know this yet. Your great-grandfather, President Eisenhower, you've gone public claiming that he, Ike, had meetings with extraterrestrials during his time in office. How did you learn that information?
Well, I mean, all I can do is say I have a strong suspicion that that is what happened. I don't have any proof. There's no hidden family documents. There's no secret conversations. There's no hidden meetings that I've gone to. It's just based on me being very open to the research that's out there and being very perceptive growing up, you know, with this kind of rumor looming over me and the family. I'm the only one that really tapped into it and decided to speak about it. You won't hear any other family member discuss this but me. And it's because, you know, I had a visitation when I was young from a higher race that told me to look through a viewfinder. That you can create a positive future, and it'll be so beautiful. You know, just focus, because they're going to try and spur you and take you someplace, and that is not what you need to do, or something like that. It was like I was being prepared when I was a kid, so I already had an understanding of other beings besides us. And so it didn't feel that far-fetched to accept the fact that, you know, Ike might have met with extraterrestrials. And in my further research, I discovered that the roots of this actually started with Crowley, Churchill, and Hitler. And Lisa Renee talks a lot about this. This is where I got that information from. I really, really trust her information. And that Roosevelt, this is what I got from another whistleblower, not Lisa, I think she touched upon it, that the first treaty was signed with Roosevelt. And that's kind of what led to the infiltration from the Nazi Party into America.
Which Roosevelt?
The one before Truman.
Okay, Franklin. Right. That, you know, this has been going on for a while, and that these treaties are renewed every 10 years. And I'm not saying that Roosevelt was bad for doing it. Who knows what it, I mean, nobody can know what it's like to confront, you know, extraterrestrials in this manner. But there's been Draco-reptilian control in our government way before Eisenhower, you know, basically really starting Roosevelt, Truman, and then Eisenhower. By that time, three-letter organizations were already established to start to, you know, keep secrecy of the UFOs and extraterrestrial presence. But they're also dealing with EBEs and, you know, the whole gray alien thing of the future human selves and what that all means. And so, you know, Ike met with more than one race. And I could get into the same kind of details anybody could find on the web about what William Cooper has said. But what we don't hear about is his meeting with the Venetians, which I find very important because that was after his meeting with the Greys that sort of, you know, kept this treaty alive of, you know, being able to abduct and do all this stuff. But by Ike came about, there was already a group that was making sure that this treaty was going to take place or be established called Ultra. Now, it's different than MK Ultra, and that he didn't really have a say at all, and he actually wanted to inform the people. He also wanted to inform the people about the Venetians. And the Venetians really wanted to help us, of course. Well, it's weird because it was leaked to me that somehow we communicated that a descendant would be born connected to the Venetian energy. And it's funny, my whole life has been about the Venus transits and the planet Venus, the Venus archetypes, Magdalene, Sophia, and all those different archetypal names are connected with Venus. And I've been on that archetypal path, you know, into the underworld and into this deep, deep, deep process that go through, you know, that kind of dark night of the soul. But that's kind of mild. What I went through, it was like the dark night of the Gaia soul, you know, just what the planetary body's dealing with. And so, you know, Venus has always been huge for me, and I didn't know any of this until the Mars recruitment time, that was part of why I was being recruited, because of my connection to the Venus energy. They wanted to take me off planet because the Venus energy works really compatibly with Earth. And somehow, I don't have all the details, but it was somehow included when I discovered why I was recruited. It wasn't just because I was a member of the Eisenhower family. Nobody else in the Eisenhower family was recruited. It had to do with my mission here and how they wanted to sort of sabotage it and take me someplace else, they said, to help them seed a new civilization on Mars. So anyway, that can go on and on, but I publicly about it, but I don't have proof as in, like, family proof. You know, I don't get... But this was something that you'd actually heard growing up?
No, this is something I've researched on my own and through my own personal experience.
But it's not like some black secret that everybody in the family knew about.
I can't imagine that they do know about it because they don't talk about it, and this is not an Illuminati family. You know, I mean, people show up in their Toyotas, and it's like down home, like playing wiffle ball, you know, eating and being merry and just having a great time like any family would. And of course, here I am at the UFO issue or the Mars recruitment, and, you know, everybody's just kind of like, you know, they seem curious, but they're a little bit like, yeah, you know, they don't really buy into the conspiracy stuff. And because I'm a good reader of energy, I can tell that there's not deception here, but there might be some level of secrecy. I can't fully tell because most of the time, since I don't get to see them that often, it's more about bonding than, getting really heavy into all this.
Yeah.
But on it, I'm doing the best I can. Last time I asked my mom, I said, come on, Mom, tell me, really, did Ike meet with aliens? And she still says, no, he went to a dentist appointment. Now, that's great and all. I'm not, putting down any of my family members or saying they're lying, but I have a different approach. I am paying attention to the whistleblowers and the researchers, and I'm being true to my own personal experience. And this Mars recruitment was a big eye-opener into all this being a massively huge possibility, because alternative 3 has to do with Mars colonies, and the gray alien agenda and the reptilian agenda that has been in the works for a long, long time, had a place in the Eisenhower administration in the form of meeting with him and others. And because I'm not one to push away information or call anybody crazy, I've just opened myself up to it, and I'm speaking about it because something's got to, and it's a truth and a reality that we're up against. I don't think they're lying, but I think, they appreciate that I'm on. Maybe they don't feel they can. Maybe their generation is a little bit more sworn to something. I don't know. I don't have those kind of answers. But I definitely know that it landed on me, and this is what I'm here to do, is to expose it, but also to empower the solution.
So do you have quite a few relatives in those Toyotas coming from Kansas still? Because I know that Dwight was from Abilene, Kansas. No,
nobody really lives in Kansas. I won't reveal where everybody lives, but, we got Pennsylvania.
Oh, sorry.
Eastern, this East Coast, there's some, it's all scattered. My granddad's still alive, my aunts and uncles, and cousins and stuff. But nobody lives in Kansas right now in the immediate family. I just went to a family, actually, last week.
I didn't mean to delve into or reveal anybody's location or anything like that. Basically, I'm in Kansas. I more or less grew up here in Kansas, and so I remember being a kid and going and seeing the whole Eisenhower estate and everything. And so I just remembered that from my childhood and wondered if maybe the family was still around. Because I know I don't run into any Eisenhowers, just going about my daily business.
Right. Yeah, they're more on the East Coast. So, but with the Venetian Eisenhower, supposedly, is very positive about the level of intervention on a higher level that we will be receiving. It says no matter how insurmountable the obstacles will seem, that we will be assisted and helped. There's all sorts of incredible things that came out of that meeting. So I encourage people to do some research about, that war and the Venetians meeting with Eisenhower and Nixon.
And we definitely are being helped. We've got Air Force personnel publicly saying, yeah, UFOs are shutting down our nukes. That kind of plays into how we can put power into a positive timeline, because it is virtually assured. Because we have very powerful friends who, want to see us free.
Right. It's just there's a danger, though, for those who refuse to be receptive to it. The level of infiltration is a lot more than I would, really like to report. But there's no, this is not a fear-based comment. It's just there's black technologies, dark occult technologies that can siphon souls into an artificial timeline. So if people don't really know themselves and they're not anchored in their own soul awareness and spiritual awareness, they run the risk of staying in this control matrix, in this time control matrix. So it's very important to be embodied in the now, to recognize that we all have a strong connection to Source. We're all creating miracles. We're all connected. There's no hierarchy. It's just some are more awake than others. And this is a crucial time in the next couple months to really be anchored and grounded in our truth, and to stay in connection with Gaia, who, represents the positive timeline. Nature in and of itself, the will of nature, is the path to follow. It's not like that makes a whole lot of sense, but, just really tuning into the planetary body. What people like Ashiana Deanne are saying, and Lisa Renee, I believe she said too, is that we're going through an ascension rather than an ascension, and that most of this density has been hijacked, but there is enough opening still with the natural stargates to be able to be on this organic ascension timeline. And it's interesting because my whole path has been about protecting the natural stargates. Starting from the very beginning, even the Psychic Institute I went to said, do you know that most of your life you've been clearing wormholes from you've been clearing inorganic entities from wormholes? And I was like, oh wow, I wrote a book about it. I just didn't quite terminology that I've been heavy duty, and we all have our own ways, probably without knowing it. It's like clearing a chakra in a sense. Block, just inorganic entities and things trying to keep us shut down. The government, the secret dark government, has been in competition with the natural Stargate opening. And so this is why it's really heavy duty right now, is because they want to sabotage our ability to open up to these higher dimensions. They want to keep us. So there's been kind of a big thing with that. Dan Burris talks about it a little bit, about the artificial stargates connected to looking glass technologies, which were mentioned in my recruitment. So I understand that going along with this Mars recruitment would basically be a false artificial timeline that would have put humanity in jeopardy. I mean, there is still jeopardy, but we have to remember this is like a school. Not everybody's going to graduate this time around, but everybody will have an opportunity. They just might have to go around the loop again. But there's a lot of forces, and on a higher level, there's a reason. There is sort of some reason for all this. It just has to do with the lessons of duality and really waking up. It's a personal thing. It's not like we're granted attention. We have to earn it. We have to initiate ourselves into it through a lot of soul work.
So when you say organic ascension, what exactly you mean? Just how ascension would play out without interference? Right. Okay. How do you see the rest of this year playing out, Laura?
I mean, I'm not one to like to predict too much. How I see it playing out, we have, the Olympics coming up. All I can say is from one moment to the next, we have to stay conscious, because we are, in a sense, creating our reality and what we're reflecting, what timeline we're on, what agreements we're making, what choices we're making, what our actions, our words and thoughts are doing. So what I see is more of a direct reflection of what we've chosen to buy into and empower. If we've chosen to empower a false system, if we've chosen to worship God way outside of ourselves and not understanding that force is within us as well, then we're going to reflect back to us, being taken advantage of and manipulated, because that's not where our attention should be. Every time we get slapped in the face with a new reality about how dark and sinister our world is, that's a clear indication that we're not supposed to look outside of ourselves for all the things that we think we need to look outside of ourselves for. Nature can take care of us and provide for us, and the power of spirit and just our own ability to open up to our higher abilities is what really can take care of us. And no government or religion has that ability. It actually takes us further and further and further away. So I think the next couple months, people are really going to see a direct reflection of what the choices they have made are leading to. And then they get to make another choice. Are you going to call yourself back to your truth? Or are you going to keep buying into it, expecting something to change when it's already a broken system and it's already corrupt and infiltrated by a lot of really dark demonic energies? So I see a split happening. Some people are going to go this way, some are going to go that way. There's a lot of, choices, but we're still being attacked. There's chemtrails. There's people getting abducted at night without even knowing it. There's implants. There's all these different things that people have to just be aware of. But they shouldn't be in fear, because as long as our frequency is high, as long as we understand, sound healing technologies and how to work with, energy and how to clear ourselves and really live in high integrity, we're already above those technologies, because they're pretty much fourth density and below, fourth dimensional technologies and below. As we get higher, we sort of override the damage that those frequencies can have on us. So we're required to be highly conscious in the next couple months. And if we can do that, we're going to steer ourselves into an incredible reality, one that I've always, been in touch with since I was a kid. It has turning to the ability to come and go from the physical as we choose, without being locked into this incarnation cycle of life and death and aging. It's about being able to journey and connect to other star systems and be, more in control on a creative level. But we need to initiate ourselves into a higher awareness. We're not just given power and that ability just like that. But powers that are running the show on the planet are in a low enough density to be able to use our power against us. So as long as we don't know what's going on and we're empowering them, we're actually giving them the fuel to manipulate us. If we were to wake up, we would starve them. So the reason they have power is because they're using our power. Otherwise, they're not even really organic beings. The reptilians are to a certain degree, but it's a very synthetic virtual reality sense. based on mimic technology that mimics our higher abilities and then feeds it to us so that we feel we're below it, and we act, they present it to the public, these huge breakthroughs in science and all this stuff, and it's all BS. What we really need to focus on our abilities and drop all the other stuff as much as possible. It's time that we just look to each other and start to focus on expanding beyond this realm. I'm not saying all technologies are bad, but the ones to really look out for use sound, color, and frequency, not mind control and chips and all these other things. And that's directly through the media is pure mind control. So people need to just get it. It doesn't take much common sense at this point to see, what's corrupt out there. But because people are so conditioned and they just think that this is normal reality, they're just waiting for the right guy in the office. They're just waiting, to see reality play itself out based on, our intelligence may be evolving. But they don't seem to understand that we've been hijacked, and we need to just get our attention away from these people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, Ron Paul seems like a great guy, and Andrew Bashag was going to be running for president in 2016, but we still have to be very careful because there's still a lot of CIA control and manipulation. And so it's great to be so close with him because, he's definitely working through a lot of this energy and realizing what he's up against. And so by 2016, we might be okay, but by that, the government might not even exist anymore, so we'll see.
I did not know that Andy was going to run for president. That's news. Well, let's just get through 2012 first.
Right.
Let's talk about the people that we need to remove and get out of our way so that we can kind of have everybody realize the truth. Because once humanity has been told the truth and shown in no uncertain terms that we're not alone, we've never been alone, that all these things were done and lied to us about, the World War II itself was a complete lie, and that the Nazis just took camp over up in America. So these people, we call them the cabal, the elite, the Illuminati, the New World Order. They do take from us, from a spiritual standpoint, from our fear. They take that energy. They don't want us to give power to a positive timeline, so they keep trying to feed us all this fear. They want us to give power to their plot. And there has been a lot of talk lately about the Olympics starting Friday. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to kind of discuss with you what you thought about that, because in my view, just kind of presage it here, my view is that it wouldn't be allowed to go forward because we do have friends, and at this late stage of the game, they have said we're not going to let anything happen because there's not enough time. So what do you think of the whole Olympic false flag plot rumor?
So you're that they don't think it's going to happen, the false flag?
Well, I think that the Illuminati are trying to get us to put power into a false flag actually being able to go off. Even if everybody thinks it's fake, I think they just want it to go off at all. And I don't think it'll be permitted. David Wilcock and Drake have talked about, or Drake has said that he was right. Wilcock was talking about his insider sources saying that weapons aren't firing in combat situations. There's a lot of misfires, a lot of big weapons just going offline. That they've been told that they're not going to get away with any sort of that type of violence anymore. That's all coming to an end. And so...
I mean, I've been really focused on that because the way that depends on where we are at today. The thing is, if we carry the burden of anger and resentment and blame and, whatever, and we carry that energy around, or fear, anything like that, we're basically holding their karmic energy in our own beings. When we can let go and just live in that 0-point energy and just free ourselves and know all that energy that we hold on to that sort of brings us down and lowers our consciousness goes back to them and screws them up. Because we're still dealing with cosmic law. The only reason they've gotten away with so much is because people have believed it. And they've said, it's like the minute you find out your husband's cheating, the whole game changes. But as long as you don't know, you can only suspect. But the minute you know is when the real karmic justice starts to happen, because the energy starts to move and the desire for justice starts to happen. And if one is, strong enough, the negative feelings that one holds on to can be thrown back at that person because that's where it originated. And the thing is, if we can take whatever feelings that we have, whatever fears, for those who are asleep, or whatever anger for those who are awake, and we can just free ourselves of the heavy burden of all these different energies, it'll assist in the divine justice. Because as long as we're holding on to stuff, we're holding on to the exact energy that they need to be thrown off. That's just the way karma works. That's the way justice works. So I really feel that enough of us are awake to be able to keep this from happening. There's enough higher beings that are assisting us to keep this from happening. And it's the same kind of thing. We heard nothing but threats about, a California earthquake. For the last couple of months, I can't tell you how many dates have come forward, a big red flag dates to flee California because a big earthquake was coming. Nothing happened. And a lot of people are saying, because there was intervention and they kept the plates, intact. So, I really think that, there's a lot of higher energy that are keeping things stable, and that it's allowing the justice and the back thrown at the dark side. But with this ascension rather than ascension that people like Ashiana are saying, this could give us the potential to awaken the masses. Because I belief, I don't care what any researcher has said. I'll consider what they say, great. But I will never let go of that we can actually ascend collectively rather than just a few of us, because everybody else is going to be trapped and imprisoned. Let's completely just get this whole collective going back because it's possible. I know it.
Well, it's supposed to be a planetary ascension, so that would make sense. And really, all we need to do is believe. I mean, that's how this whole game works. We kind of figured that out.
Totally, and that's why, when one reads somebody's researching or any of their thoughts, don't hold on to the fixed belief. Appreciate, the heads up, but then be creative with it. Don't stop there and say, okay, well, because she said it, I guess this is the way it's going to be. Just say, okay, well, this is maybe where it's at right now, but that information can give us the ability to do something with it and take it to a whole new level by shifting our beliefs into what our potential truly is. And that's
by choosing your ascension experience in the moment.
Right. So nothing is
brilliant.
Nothing is fixed.
Nothing is fixed. We can choose, and so we can withdraw attention from that negative timeline, not feed it, let that karmic justice, those bad feelings, just kind of go back to roost where they came from, and instead refocus our attention on a positive timeline, which, if we're talking about the events of Friday, July 27th, what would a positive choice for a world-changing event be for the beginning of the London Olympics, when the world is collectively, symbolically gathered? What if there were a huge mass UFO sighting? What if we told them that we'd be okay with that? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, if we could choose a positive timeline, that would be mine.
Right. Well, I think, focusing on a mass awakening instead of a false flag, just because, like some event of a higher nature that can squash, sort of these darker agendas and really shine through it all, because we're ready and we've, empowered our beliefs to align with it. And it's beyond belief. It's the gnosis. It's the knowingness that this is here with us already. It just needs our attention. It's just like, our connection to source energy. It never goes away. The only problem with us is that we don't have our attention on it. We have our attention on something else and we're over here. But it's always with us. And so these higher beings are with us. The truth is with us. The ascension timeline is with us. It's the distraction that is keeping us, in danger. So, yeah, I think just focusing our attention on a mass awakening instead of, a false flag possibility or a fake alien attack, that might happen, but we don't have to focus on that or prepare for it as much as we can, put our energy into a mass awakening. And if something does happen that's of a false nature, then that could be a catalyst for a great awakening, because 9/11 just about did that. They just about shot themselves in the foot doing something as stupid as a controlled demolition, because the amount of architecture and everything that, our conspiracy theorists are saying this can't happen. So it's taking people a while to handle the 9/11 thing, maybe too long, but I think, every time they do a false flag, they run the risk of exposing themselves. Just like when Obama and Hillary had that picture taken of them strategizing with the Navy SEALs, the killing of Osama bin Laden. I mean,
right.
It looked theater. I was like, okay, who wins the Emmy nomination or the Oscar? It was ridiculous. It's like, you won't show us the photograph? And somebody posted a picture, it was funny, of a sandal floating in the water saying, here's proof. But the whole point is, they're either going to shoot themselves in the foot by being so blatantly giving away, a big lie, because there's too many of us awake, or there's going to be a mass awakening. And I think I have to keep empowering that, because we are the creators. Our everything. So, it's the danger is we're handed information and we run with it. We forget that we're creators, that we can create something new, that we're not stuck with the information.
That's well put, and that's an important perspective for people to kind of take in and examine, because it's just a different way of looking at ascension, the whole choosing it and not having it be written and playing with it and being creative with it. That I hadn't even really thought of that. That's brilliant.
Oh, cool.
Because I could count myself in the group of people who are like, okay, waiting for what's supposed to happen. When, you know, as I was telling my wife last night, the way I see it, it's basically assured. We've heard reports from the future that it happens, but how it happens, we're still choosing right now. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know. That's it. I guess I had the perspective without really knowing it, without taking it to the thought that, hey, you know, I have the power to actually choose how this goes, and I can be creative with it. That's brilliant.
Oh, that's good, because I articulated it that much in an interview, so I'm glad that, you know, we get to, because it's totally, you know, I really, really know that. I mean, that's, you know, how I saved myself from the Mars thing. Everything else in my life got destroyed. Everything I tried to create, you know, I was very much targeted, and there was weaponry involved, and just a lot of, you know, things trying to force me into this false timeline. And the minute I broke free of it, I was like, okay, I have to start my life all over again, in a sense, because everything up to that, you know, didn't reach fruition, because they, you know, left nothing else but Mars recruitment. Like everything else I tried to create, and I'm not blaming. I mean, I take full responsibility for everything in humanity. I mean, we're all one. We have to recognize that we're made of all the archetypes and beings in the cosmos, and we get to choose how we want to play with those energies within ourselves to decide, you know, work with it. So, you know, I went into, you know, just my need to just step up and empower my own freedom and creativity and say no, and then work on creating a reality that rather than what was expected of me or what they wanted to push me into. There's a lot of timelines, there's a lot of potentials. Almost every possibility that's out there has already happened. You know, we're beyond time and space, but we're dealing with, you know, time control that sort of makes it a process, but it's very cyclical, and that's why there's time travel. But it's a time loop, and when we, you know, get out of the time loop, we can recognize that, you know, we have the potential to manifest anything, and that it's our air. It's our choice that aligns us with the frequency to jump on that, I guess you can say, wave, to begin to experience that dimension or that experience.
You know, we were talking about how everybody seems to be waking up, or I mean, it really does seem like the things are growing at an almost exponential rate, as we were told that it would, or, you know, it makes sense. Do you have that same impression that people really are waking up?
Yeah, you know, and sometimes I absolutely do. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm surprised the people that seem to be conscious that, you know, will go into some weird, you know, place. I mean, we're dealing with robotic clones and all sorts of weird stuff, and there's high level of perception out there. But I do think, I mean, I'm blown away by the amount of community and just how everybody just shares, and there's so much love and interest, and just, you know, Facebook's amazing, I have to say. It's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm blown away by the level of awakening, but I'm still blown away by the level of ignorance too. But I definitely, I'm more just focused on the beauty of our blooming. I mean, we're blooming. And those that are in total resistance to it can continue to play that game. And they're the same people that complain about the state of things in the world. But they're also the same people that are very rude and just, you know, very critical and like to smear people, and just are still owning a lot of duality and just lower ego qualities. So, you know, I don't think people recognize that waking up isn't just, you know, finding out secret information. It's waking up and really being a better person.
That is a challenge. And the reason that's a challenge is because people get in the groove. They get into it, they're conditioned. This is how I am. It's, you know, changing would be hard. This is easy. I'm in my groove. I don't even realize I'm in a groove. Right.
So conditioned, and we're so desensitized to lower consciousness behavior that, you know, people don't even notice that, you know, waking up isn't just finding out that there's a secret space program or 9/11 was a false flag. It's about recognizing how your energy is being run, what you're feeding, what you're empowering, because they harness energy all the time. They harness lower sexual energy, they harness egoic energy, they harness fear, and they harness our hopes. Anything that keeps us from being in the now is basically caught by them, and it fuels their agenda. So people have to understand that waking up isn't just finding out secrets. It's really waking up and really paying attention to what you're empowering, how you're carrying your energy, how you're treating your loved ones, and how you're treating yourself. So that to me is a bigger form of waking up.
And the one that I was most resistant to, and I just got dislodged recently by my wife, and I'm now reading the 4 Agreements, and really I think it's kind of synchronicity that I'm actually, that's the one thing I've been resistant to, is really looking at myself and how I deal with other people, how I react to other people, and the things that I say and the way that I say them. And so that's kind of my struggle, and then that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we're all doing that on a daily basis. I mean, my gosh, it's challenging, but you know, if we're with supportive people and got good friends and good relationships, you know, we have to have a lot of compassion. I mean, this is an intruder race. This is not something that's part of our natural unfoldment. We've been insulted with implants and programmings and ancestral patterns, and so we have to be very forgiving towards ourselves and others, because we're not perfect. You know, it's not easy. You know, I sink into pits, you know, that aren't very, you know, positive. They're kind of like frustrated and just anxious and just, you know, this isn't the energy I need to be carrying. And I have to remind myself, but I'm like, oh my God, you know, my mom was like that, or my uncle, you know.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself. So I totally appreciate, you know, your humility, but I'm right there with you, and I know a lot of us are really working on, you know, that kind of stuff. You just in our own selves, whether it be the way we treat people or just the way, you know, we feel when we wake up in the morning, and just how we're carrying ourselves in our thoughts and behaviors. So, you know, this is the real deprogramming, is staying conscious and paying attention, and then transmuting it, and, you know, being willing to just apologize, and instead of, you know, pointing blame and judgment, to really go within and look at your own self. That's what people have a challenge doing, and that's what it's really all about right now.
Well, that's a lot of habits for people to take on in 6 months.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah, that's why I do, you know, readings, because I just want to help people accelerate that process, because I know how tough it is. You know, with the level of insults, you know, there's no blame or judgment. So, you know, we just need to support one another and be very forgiving.
And we can all be forgiving of the elite after they're gone. There are just so many signs, even in the mainstream, that things are just about the global financial system could implode at any moment. There are LIBOR arrests imminent. That's in the mainstream media. Banks are being fined hundreds of $millions left and right. Bank executives are resigning or being arrested left and right. The markets have been down the last few days because Spain suddenly needs more than the bailout that they just announced like the week before. And now Europe is thinking they may not be able to even cover what Spain needs, because it's Greece times 5 as far as the size of their economy. Even Germany is slipping into recession. We've got a senior economist with the IMF leaving and publicly declaring he's ashamed to have any association with the fund at all. That's a quote. Quote, ashamed to have any association with the fund at all. And the Guardian newspaper released a story claiming $30-some trillion were hidden by the global elite in offshore tax shelters. I mean, there is just so much. It's all being set up. They just had to put this information in the public eye so the public understands why all of a sudden these guys are arrested.
Wow, yeah.
I really think it's about to happen. It's definitely being set up.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I just, you know, it's interesting to watch it play out, and especially from a place of neutrality. Try not to get too enmeshed in some of it, but gosh, didn't the bill pass? You know, that whole thing with Ron Paul's thing? That's
yes,
positive.
That happened today. That actually happened today.
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
I mean, because we're dealing with intel wars. We're dealing with, you know, it's all a mixed bag out there, and you know, there's good people in our governments that are trying to stop, you know, this corruption. But, you know, they're up against a lot, and I have a hard time spotting who the good ones are. But, yeah, I mean, I just think this is all very exciting, and it's time to really clean up. And I think there's going to be intervention absolutely to help us with the radiation issue. And, you know, there's a lot of this chemtrail conference coming up. I really encourage people to check out and really support, because, you know, it's enough to sit there and have people post pictures and complain all the time. Let's all...
Guilty.
Yeah. So let's all get together and, like, really make this a blowout so the masses can get educated, because the more of us there are, the more attention it'll get, you know, from others in the world that have no idea what this is all about.
I just still don't understand how anybody can not notice it and not wonder about it and not, I mean, seriously, you can see that stuff stretch from horizon to horizon and grow into a cloud and see them keep dumping it over there and then think that's just natural. How?
Are they having a sky show? I mean, come on, people. Like, you know, like, oh, look at the pretty X's in the sky and all the lines. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Like they don't even look up. I mean, how? Yeah, that is just, to me, I don't understand how anybody can be that asleep. I don't understand it. I can't perceive it.
I can't either, because we all have intuitions. I mean, how shut down is he? I mean, a lot of us were vaccinated and drank fluoride by accident, and we can still see through the BS. I don't know what the excuse is anymore. I mean, we all have intuition. I don't know. I grew up watching a bit of TV too, and never really got that programmed at all by it. I mean, I guess some of us just. And I'm not trying to, like, you know, pat myself on the back here, but a lot of us have been up against the same programming, and we're able to see through it. I don't know why it's so difficult for the masses to just get it. I really don't. The fact that up to the royal family and the Jubilee was a big deal and the royal wedding, it just blows my mind that they are praising the very people that are screwing us over.
Laura Eisenhower, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us tonight. It was awesome.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Everybody, check out Laura's site, CosmicGaia2012.com. There's just a plethora of different things that you need to know about. And if you have questions about that, I believe there's contact information on there as well, right, Laura?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Next week, we're going to do another Where Things Stand episode. David and Matt are going to come back. You can reach us at facebook.com/extraordinaryyear, one word. Please go like us, spread the word. It's easy to help others, awaken and bring more light to our planet. Follow me on Twitter at Tim Bravo. And that's it for us on the 148th day before December 21st, 2012. Keep your ear to the ground, kids. Remember,
do not be afraid.
It's going to be an extraordinary year. Peace is on its way. Namaste.